All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to veve Investments. I appreciate you tuning in. On today's episode, we're going to be covering 7 different business opportunities inside the Veveverse. So if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you want to see in future episodes. Without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, so I'm not entirely sure how long this video is going to be, just because I am limited in terms of, how much detail I can go into with each one of these things. This is still speculation at the end of the day because we don't know the exact details of how this is all going to work. We just have bits of information. So there are some assumptions that I'm making in this video, but I'll make sure to outline what those assumptions are as we go from point to point. Now, the first one we're going to talk about here is going to be a vault designer. So this is something that was actually mentioned by Dan in the community update video. He mentioned that they're going to be providing something called a services platform, and he used the example of a vault designer when explaining this. So that's the first opportunity we'll discuss here. You get hired to design different vault spaces inside of the Veveverse. So the biggest question you want to ask yourself is why, right? Why is somebody going to want to hire a vault designer inside of the Veveverse? You want to understand why this is all going to happen, right? And the biggest reasons would be that individual has, a lack of time to do it themselves, or they lack the creativity to come up with the ideas themselves. Alex mentioned in the video that he's an individual who, can really only line up his collectibles in a straight line. So an individual like Alex would want to hire a vault designer inside of the Veveverse in order to design his vault in a way that he can't do it himself. Second question you want to ask yourself is how? How would you do this, right? So it would be ideal to have a portfolio of your own vault creations. That way you can show it to potential customers. But then you can leverage, again, what was mentioned in the community update video by Dan, which is what's going to be veve's services platform. Now, the first assumption I'm going to make in this video, guys, is that this services platform, the moment he mentioned this, I thought of another company called Fiverr. So if you guys aren't familiar with this company, what Fiverr is it's a freelance website. Okay, so I can be a freelancer on Fiverr and sell my own services through Fiverr in exchange for Fiverr to take a small percentage of my service fee. So we'll head over to the website right now and I'll show you guys what I mean. Okay, so we're over on the homepage of Fiverr right now, and this is typically what you'll come to when you search for something specific on Fiverr. In this case, I searched for a minimalist logo design. So what you guys see on screen right now is scroll down and it just pops up option after option after option for freelancers who can do exactly this, right? Design a minimalist logo. Now, the reason I thought about Fiverr when Dan was talking about the services platform is because what he was describing is exactly what Fiverr offers already, and Fiverr does it very, very well. So as you guys can see, you have your search bar, you have the options to filter your search, and then you have, in rows of 4, each freelancer to choose from, right? You don't need to complicate it any more than this. So the first assumption I'm making is assuming that the veve services platform will look similar and operate in a similar way to what we're looking at on screen right now, okay? And for those who are going to go, oh, well, that's a big assumption. What if it doesn't operate this way? I'm also bringing it up because if there is a chance that the veve team is watching this video, then perhaps this is something you guys can consider if you haven't taken it into consideration already. So moving forward in the video, I am going off the assumption that there will be some way to show your work through this services platform. Obviously, we don't want a platform where it's just going to list a bunch of names. It's going to show the price for those services. But the only way of checking exactly, what each person is offering and what they've done in the past is by clicking on each and every one of them, right? In this case, each freelancer on Fiverr has a display photo, which gives us an idea of their ability, right? I can also scroll through to see past work. They also have, they have a rating system. I'm not necessarily talking about that, but they have a small description, and then they show us the price that freelancer is charging for the service. Think of it similar to that of a car dealership, right? So if you go into a car dealership website, you see the initial photo of the car, which is the display photo, and then you have the option of clicking on that photo to see more photos of the interior, understand what the features are, get a description of the vehicle, etc., etc. So talking about being a vault designer, assuming that veve's services platform provides a way for me to, have a display photo or some way of showing my previous work, right? That is why I say you would ideally want to have a portfolio of your previous vault creations to show potential customers. And then you would leverage veve's services platform as a way of showing that work, getting new customers. And then if you want to even take it a step further, you can run your own personal, targeted ads and things like that. But that's a whole other conversation. Next up, and similar to that of being a vault designer, we have an interior designer, more specifically someone who would design different home spaces in the Veveverse. So when the veve team did their first Veveverse unveiling, they showed us what the home space looks like at Decon Anaheim, which is what you guys see on the left. And one of the first things that caught my eye was actually how big the space was. So there's lots of opportunity to be creative, right? So again, going back to the why question, why would somebody want to hire an interior designer? Well, they don't really have the time to be able to design their home space right now. Or again, just as we talked about with the Vault designer, they lack the creativity to do it themselves. Now, what you guys are going to notice here is there is going to be a little bit of repetition with the how question, just because of the limited details that we have right now. There may be more opportunities than just the veve services platform. But again, just based off what Dan mentioned in the most recent community update video, this is what I'm basing it off of. So in this case, how would you be an interior designer? Well, again, you're going to want to ideally have a portfolio of your previous home designs to show potential customers. You can then leverage veve services platform to promote that work and get new customers. And again, you could take it a step further, run your own targeted ads, actively post and promote through social media, that type of stuff. Next, we'll talk about one we've mentioned on the channel in the past, and that's a rental shop. So for this specific example, I got vehicles on the right because when I think of a rental shop, I think of renting out vehicles. But we understand that the veve team is going to be providing renting capabilities that, cover more than just vehicles. So in this case, right, what you would do is you would rent out NFTs to users who would be looking to use them for a limited time. The main reason they would be doing this is because the customer doesn't own the NFT that they're renting themselves. And how would you do something like this? Well, it would be ideal to have a larger collection. You don't necessarily have to have a large collection, but have a collection of veve NFTs that you can offer. And then you need to be staking OMI tokens to qualify for renting capabilities. Now, since updating the OUP portal, veve has made it clear that renting capabilities can be unlocked by staking any amount of OMI tokens. That wasn't originally the case. However, it is now. So just so you guys are aware, all you need to do is stake any amount of OMI tokens. Now, in this case, it would be ideal to have duplicates, right? So I'm just thinking of rental shops in real life here. If I go into a rental shop and they only have one Lambo, right, and it's been rented out, then I don't really have the option of renting out a Lambo. In this case, the more the merrier, right? So the more duplicates you have, the better. But in this case, the more variety you have, the better as well. Now, I did mention in a past video, my idea or thought process behind how a smart contract could work in this case. Again, this is pure speculation, so this would be the second assumption I'm making here, but I'll run you guys through that real quick if you guys missed that previous episode. So if you guys don't know how a smart contract works, a smart contract actually has the ability to automatically execute. So based off the parameters that you've set in that smart contract, think of parameters as, terms and conditions in a physical contract. Based on the parameters you set, the smart contract will automatically execute, allowing you to essentially eliminate the middleman. So in this case, let's say somebody wants to rent out my DeLorean. Let's say I have my DeLorean sitting on a showroom pad in a building on my plot of land. They walk into my showroom and they say, hey, I want to take out your DeLorean for 7 days. You would set the parameters of the smart contract so that the DeLorean transfers from my wallet ID to their wallet ID. You would put a time expiration parameter of 7 days so that at the end of the 7 days, the smart contract would expire automatically. And then you would set the price parameter of how much you're charging per day for a total of X amount of dollars, right? You would set the smart contract live, and then all of a sudden your DeLorean would disappear out of your showroom. It would end up in their inventory. The money would go from their account to your account. And then at the end of the 7 days, the DeLorean would automatically disappear from their inventory and end up right back in mine. So it automatically executes based off how I set that smart contract up. Again, pure speculation. I am not saying this is how it's going to work. I'm just sharing my thought process and how I'm thinking about it right now. Next up, I've thought about the possibilities of a scripting developer, right? So Dan mentioned in the community update video that he's been messing around with the scripting features. He scripted out a feature so that when he walks into his home, collectibles fall from the ceiling. And essentially, the way I'm thinking about this is you can get hired to script out custom-made features. So if somebody has a particular feature in mind that they want for their home space, but they don't know how to do it or they don't have the time to do it, they can hire you to get the job done. How would you do this? Well, one, you need to understand how to use the feature. But then two, just as we discussed in the past points, having a portfolio of the creations that you've scripted out would obviously be ideal. And then you can leverage veve services platform to promote that service and get new customers. Next up, I've thought about an event coordinator. So, there's been many events that have taken place in the digital space events in Fortnite, Meta, Decentraland, Sandbox, the list really goes on. But the same exact thing will be happening inside the Veveverse. So, being an event coordinator, you would coordinate events for other users inside of the Veveverse, right? It could be home gatherings, it could be concerts, like what you guys see on screen there. It can be corporate events, right? Meta has ran multiple corporate events inside of their virtual space so far. But why would somebody hire you to do this? Well, if you guys don't know, there are full companies out there that have full-time event coordinators. The first company I actually ever ran was a sales agency. I had an event coordinator who would just cold call businesses and try and book events for us to set up at. Lack of time or resources, right? So in my particular case, I didn't really want to spend the time sitting there cold calling all these businesses. I had other things to focus on in my business. So that's exactly why I had that individual doing it. Resources in the sense that, maybe the event coordinator has relationships that they could leverage to help set up the events. Maybe they have expertise in the advertising space where they can set up targeted ads to promote the event, right? Things like that. And again, a little bit of repetition here in terms of how you would do this. You would leverage Veve Services platform. You could take it a step further by running your own targeted ads, promoting it through social media. But again, ideally having a portfolio of previous events that you've ran in the past to show your previous success to potential clients. Next up, I thought of a custom designer. So the team did mention at the Veveverse unveiling that they are going to be allowing users to create and submit 3D models for approval. So in this case, right, a custom designer can get hired to design custom 3D models of accessories or entire themes for home spaces. So again, Dan did mention that home spaces are default and that we could be seeing IP branded homes. Well, maybe you want to create your own entire theme. And from my understanding, by creating and submitting 3D models, you would be able to do this. Now, the main reason somebody would hire a custom designer is the previous things we've mentioned before, right? They don't know how to do it themselves. They don't have the time to do it themselves, or they're just not creative enough to come up with the ideas themselves. Now, how would you do this? You would use 3D software to model, design, and then submit that 3D content to Veve for approval. But of course, you also need to know how to use that 3D software. Now, my biggest question actually about submitting the 3D models is knowing that Veve is created inside of both Unity and Unreal Engine. Would they require users to create their 3D models inside of those game engines, or would we be able to use other platforms like Blender? This is something we're going to have to wait and see. And last but not least, I want to talk about monetizing land. Staking season 1 starts in January, and I believe they're doing land sales in staking season 5. So it is a little bit a ways away, but in order to take advantage of opportunities like this, you want to think about them beforehand. So in this case, there's multiple ways that you can monetize land or will be able to. And I'm basing this off of how platforms like Decentraland and Sandbox already operate. So the first way that you can monetize land is ad space. Let's say you just have a flat piece of land, you've done nothing with it, but it's in, a higher traffic area, and a business comes along and says, hey, we want to advertise on your, land, right? We're willing to pay you X amount of dollars per month in order to do this. Can you give us the yay or the nay, right? So that would be the first way. Second way is that you can rent the land out for someone to build on, right? Again, maybe you just have a flat piece of land, but you haven't done anything with it. Somebody comes along and has a vision or idea of what they would want to be able to do on your land space. Then you can rent that land space out on a month-by-month basis, but allowing that individual to build and do what they want on it. And the third option I thought about here was renting to a business. So let's say you have a piece of land, but you have done something with it. Maybe you have a vacant building, right, that you've spent some resources to build. You can rent that building out to a business that comes in and uses that building to run their business in. Now, before somebody goes, oh, you have no idea if you're going to be able to do any of this stuff with Veve Land and blah, 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 blah. Each one of these 3 points are things that have already happened in other virtual spaces, okay? I remember a specific story of a 16-year-old in Decentraland who was running an auto shop or something of that sort, and he was making 6 figures per month. All of this stuff may seem very unrealistic for some people watching, but you have to understand how early we actually are. Some of these things still might be years down the line, right? But that does not mean it's not going to happen. And again, these are all things you have to consider if you want to take advantage of opportunities like this. So that is going to conclude today's episode, guys. We walked through 7 different business opportunities that I see in the Veveverse as of right now. If there's opportunities that you guys are thinking about that I didn't discuss in this video, make sure to comment them down below. I'd be very interested in seeing what you guys are thinking. But if you guys enjoyed the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you guys want to see in a future episode. And as for our next one, I'll catch you then.